proposal or with something entirely different, something that you know about or something you want to bring forward. So it's all to come out tonight. And Mark may jot some notes, but it's also being recorded and videotaped, correct? Yes. So we'll have lots of documentation. So next, immediately, oh, I'm sorry. I only practiced this like 37 times today. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you, thank you. So because we're not going to take an official break, please take care of yourselves. There's a restroom right in this beautiful hotel room that's right up here and to my right, and you can use that and also get to see one of the rooms. There's more up above, a bunch of stairs, but this one's closer, and with this amount, I think we can use that well. There's also water in the back, so please stay hydrated. It's pretty hot out here. It is. So the only thing else that I want to ask is to silence your cell phones so they don't go off. And I think it's it. And then what we will do is I'll look at the list, and it doesn't look like we have too many people, so I'm not sure we're going to have to like time you or anything like that. So if you're on the list to speak, and if we get through everybody and you want to speak and we still have time left for our ending time, it'll be great. So let me introduce to you, or let me introduce Mark to you. This is Mark Whitman, and he's our host. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Take a bow, Mark. Take a bow. Thank you all for coming. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you, Ulrich, for donating this amazing space. He gave us choices of where to be inside, or there's another patio on the other side. But I said, wow, if we can have this view and be here, it's worth just not even having the presentation, just to be here and enjoy the view. So I hope you all enjoy that. But I'm here to. Sarah, thank you, Sarah, for volunteering to. She's a professional moderator, so she volunteered to moderate the meeting and keep things on track and help things along. The intent of the meeting is to open it up to the public to have input. That we're looking for naysayers or even, but also good ideas for how this property might shape up, but my idea it came forward, after as a result of the school district, having the proposal for the playground outfit to do the commercial development. That got everyone heard about that, got all the negative flack and the protests and all that. So it was kind of a reaction to that proposal, but also I've been thinking about it beforehand. The city's been talking about surplusing the property for quite a few years, and so I was thinking about what would be the best use of it. I don't have the wherewithal to have such a big development concept as the playground did, and so but I was thinking of all the the different uses. But after the playground did their thing, I thought about it really hard and came up with this idea for the Art Institute of Ojai. And the idea is that it would just bring in all different kind of arts and into the valley and be a school for the learning experience. And it would have we're open to the different uses that might take place there. But I threw out, my favorite thing is to do oil painting, and so it'd be like an oil painting school, and maybe a sculpture school, and dance school, music school, all different kind of arts, even the culinary arts. It'd be a cooking school, but also it'd be kind of a community center where we build a community space in the middle of the courtyard. I have a plan up here for you guys to look at, but it'd be a space in the center for community use, but also it could be used for other events as well, for banquets and whatnot. And there's a affordable housing component, but I think it should be like a live work for the artists who live there, and have it be part of the artist community that might take place there. And so really comes down to like creating such an amazing piece of property in the middle of town, creating sort of this mecca for the arts in the middle of downtown that would actually change the texture of our whole downtown space. And you know, right now we're kind of being taken over by our tourist industry. You know, I'd be a hypocrite to say I don't like the tourists because we're in the tourist business, but it is kind of Ohio is becoming a tourist town, and it had always been an artist and spiritual place, and that's kind of being taken over by the tourist thing. And so I think this is a way to, you know, to kind of supersede, you know, the idea of Ohio being a tourist town and become a great artist community, be known for Ohio as a great artist community, and you know, that's kind of I think it would help change or help write the course of Ohio as a community. I've been getting a lot of help from a lot of different people. Robert Ornstein's here today, and he's been really amazing. But he came up with, you know, some of the things we've been talking back and forth, and he's saying the why of this proposal is sort of a beginning of a mission statement too for the whole institute or nonprofit that would be created to run the nonprofit. But it'd be a mission statement. This is the beginning of it. It's in the making, but offering an enriched and unique environment, fostering and supporting the arts in all its dimensions and forms through inspiring, educating, mentoring, cultivating, nurturing artists of the future. And so we want to grow on that. So we hope people can you know, add to that and come up with some more ideas. And the preference I talked about, you know, what important piece of property. This is in the downtown area. It's like a hub of energy, and the artists, you'll bring in these young, you know, vibrant, you know, this is in my, you know, fantasy, bringing these young, vibrant artists, bring in them downtown and along with their teachers, and bring in this whole new energy into the downtown, but I also think one of the premises is that it should be self-supporting. It should have we need a business plan. We don't have a plan yet, but I think that's the next, you know, one of the next things to do. We don't have a business plan, but we should also be thinking about the school district. I went to the school district meeting the other night, and it's very apparent that our public school system is in bad shape, and they need help. And so we should make this project one of the main priorities. Is how do we give back or help the school district out, and we talk a lot about a nexus of energies and how bringing this new energy into town, in the middle of town, and the school, and perhaps it could be a magnet high school or a magnet art school within the school district, where it brings in students into the school district that take part in these classes and bring students to the school district. But also they need money, and so we need to have a financial you know, some kind of financial backing for their moving out from mainly, but also, you know, for their operations. And it's a valuable piece of property to them, and we shouldn't ignore that. And it should, you know, we should, you know, in our business plan, we should, you know, take that into account. But you know, they asked the developers before to create the highest and best use monetarily, but we think it should be the highest and best use for the community as well. And not just, you know, it should be a win-win situation for both. This comes from you know, Robert, but we feel this is a Kanaloa opportunity, and I don't know. I just learned about Kanaloa, but it's a Hawaiian god. But it says it's doing the right thing in the right place at the right time with the right intention for the right reasons with the right people, and the gods will help us. You know, it will help us out. And so, yeah, and so, you know, that we're looking, you know, we're seeing this as a Kanaloa experience or opportunity. And so we're here tonight to, you know, talk about, you know, what you know, ideas might be out there, but also any people might have some issues that say, oh well, it's not going to make any money, or you know, we think we haven't come to that point yet. We're still in, a beginning process of doing that. But we're looking for a community consensus at this time, for the project. And so that's the kind of reason for this meeting is to say, hey, community, what do you think? And what is your feedback? And so I'd like to conclude my talk. That's the end of my speech. But I don't want to open up for questions right now. I'd rather just open up. The reason we're having this is for people to come up and give their thoughts. And we have a recording going on, and we'd like to make it part of our our campaign of creating enthusiasm. I think that's kind of what our main purpose right now is to create enthusiasm behind the project. And I'll be taking some notes and let everybody else take over the meeting.
Before you do that, Mark, could you take us through that
Yeah,
Sure.
I was going to say that
Sure.
as well.
No, I understand. Sarah, you need the clipboard?
Get a pointer.
I'm not on the mic, but I'll talk really loud. But so one of the main premises of this concept is to keep all the existing buildings. Don't take any buildings out. There's value in all that building, and also there's environmental impacts of having to replace buildings. And so there's a lot of body carbon in all the existing buildings, and so keeping them all and fixing them up, but keeping the structures. And so all the white is the existing structures, existing uses, and the blue is the new proposed structures, new uses. And so in the white is mostly schools, there's some offices here, a cafe, maybe in the corner, and then maybe the auditorium could be a cool coffee shop for the students to perform, having community performances there. And then there's commercial kitchens behind a cooking school, which is in the front, which make it serve out into a plaza in the front. We have a European kind of cafe plaza, with maybe some art installations in the front of the school. And then behind it is a large community hall, for a couple thousand people. And so it'd be like a banquet hall for, we could have a wedding venue. That may be a way to create and generate income for the project, and also a place for the community to meet. There's not Rotary right now would be at the Catholic Church because there's nothing available, and it'd be nice to have some place for it to be more community-like. And this half of the plaza will remain for the farmers market, but the farmers market could kind of bleed into. There's a lot of new parking, and so whether or not it's enough or not, we have to do a parking study, and we haven't gone that far yet. This is the affordable housing, or the mixed-use artist live-work spaces. The skate park would remain, and the public parking in the front would remain. And then I have a black box theater for I know it's not the theater that Joan was dreaming of, but it would be a theater component, dance school, music school, gallery space, painting school, and this is a hostel for visiting artists who can't afford to stay in the local motels, and the housing for students. Most starving artists are. Welding, and these are like these warehouse metal building spaces. There's a sculpture school or a pottery school and welding school. And some of the ideas that have come forward since I've done this is digital arts. And creating a digital,
like video.
Yeah, technology, bringing video, or there's a lot of graphic artists working on computers now. So having a space like that, especially for kids, I think the high school kids would really go for that. My nephew Hunter here, he can maybe talk about that. But it'd be something to bring in outside people that come to school here and help the school district out. And so we're open to those, all those kind of ideas. I know trade schools came up, and that is a possibility, but it's not. I don't want to dilute the idea of this mecca for the arts. And I kind of thought it could be like a Juilliard of the West, but maybe that's a little too fancy. Maybe we're Ojai, but it could be just a really spectacular space like that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, well,
It's all right. Please. Are you okay? Yeah, but you need to go up to the podium so we can record it. Yeah, great.
oh, you're thorough.
I know, yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for showing up. I'm so excited. So my name's Vera Long, and I'm so thrilled to be invited by Mark to be on the committee for the Ojai Art Institute. I've thought that this is a wonderful idea for, I think, maybe like 7 or 8 years. I've been talking to the school district, and there's actually like a lot of broad support for this, and so many possibilities, so many possibilities. I myself, I originally hail from Los Angeles, and I was so lucky to go to the Los Angeles County High School for the Arts, which is a special charter type school. It was on the Cal State, it is on the Cal State LA campus. And one of my good friends who graduated, who gets written up in Art Forum, she ended up becoming the art director for that school, and we're in very close contact, and she's interested in helping with this idea. But so I'm a longtime art educator. I'm an artist, but I'm also a longtime art educator in Ojai. I'm a member of the Ojai Studio Artists, which I'm so glad to have Mark a part of, as he should be. I'm on the board of directors. I'm the chairwoman of the Outreach and Education Committee. But so going to Arts High School changed my life, and it gave me so many, you know, like I was already like broad-minded, but it gave me so many wonderful experiences, and it strengthened who I was as a person. I've taught thousands of kids in this Tri-County area in private schools and public schools. I've had the good fortune to teach hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids in the Ojai Valley, like entire schools, like all of Miramonte, all of Miners Oaks. And I can tell you that arts education is not just to become an artist. Like, it's wonderful, and I've loved to like help that. I've taught elementary school kids, I've taught stop motion animation to junior high school kids, and I've done mentorship programs through the Arts Commission to high school students. But I can say for sure that I've never met a non-creative kid or non-creative person. It's literally like the standard operating equipment of being human. And being able to support that and see what that does to how people feel about themselves and how they look at other things. I mean, we can talk about how it supports science. Like, my father was a physicist, and he was incredibly creative. You know, like, and he was also an engineer, and I feel like creativity is in engineering, creativity is in design, creativity is in any kind of human art form, writing, everything. It supports everything, and I've just had the wonderful experience of being able to let, like, every kid in the school know that they're creative, you know, and who knows how that reverberates forward. And I've spoken at many school board meetings, and absolutely, I know that this is like a precious property, but I definitely feel, and there's like a broad community support where I feel like we can make this the most like beneficial and productive thing for not just our kids, but our entire community. And I'm sure, and anyway, so in a practical sense, I actually a couple years ago started a nonprofit that we may like join forces, because it's a nonprofit organization for arts education in Ojai called Ojai One, and I've been certified for federal funding. One thing that I think is a positive way to make this doable for this property, because it's like wonderful ideas are wonderful, but I really feel like making it doable is there are really good grants for just researching the community impact and the community benefit for something like this. There's NEA grants for that, there's federal grants for that, and so we can, you know, get the funds to be able to create all the plans. That it's totally understandable that, you know, if it's a big high dollar property, you would need to like research that. We can like do that. And I also feel like reaching out to the community, because I'm so grateful that all of you showed up. Because showing up, you know, is wonderful, but like a lot of parents are working, they didn't hear about it, they can't show up. So doing canvassing and creating like a survey of like, what would you like to see? You know, it's like, there could be adults education, trades education. And by the way, I kind of think that the trades arts are also kind of wonderful also for the arts because, with the Ojai Studio Artists, there's so many different forms of art. And like one of my best friends whose father is a director in town, Gabby Shelton, like Ron Shelton's her mom, her dad. And like, she's this amazing architectural sculptor, and she just got written up in like New York for creating all these sculptural things. Having welding, like they really feed into each other. See, he agrees. He agrees. He's like, they all feed into each other.
In support of our project.
He can feel the strength. It has strength. Like, I'm down. I won't. But all those disciplines feed into each other. So having like, I absolutely feel we could have like a world standard arts, science, and trade school here in Ojai that's available for free for public school students. And we could also have a wonderful adults education, during the evenings and on the weekends to like further adults advancement, whether it's like self-development or learning new trades and learning new skills. If those are people's parents, that's also helping the kids. And it's all absolutely doable. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of dollars of grants. And I'm on the Ojai Studio Artists. I've written several successful local grants, and I've also gotten permission from the Ojai Studio Artists to use their professional grant writer to help advise on this project, because the Ojai Studio Artists, which has like 80 plus amazing studio artists, would love to be a part of creating this. It's all doable, and we just want to drum up support. Another idea that I personally had to help like invest the public into, getting excited about it and being part of it, because it should be like a community supporting event, is creating a Facebook forum just for it. It's kind of like moderated, where it's just like, bring your ideas, but also want to be part of the positive solution. There's that, and I'm so thankful that you're all here, and I'm really excited because I know it's going to happen. And so thank you for being here. I think it's going to be really exciting. You have a question?
We got speakers lined up.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm done.
So Vera is not enthusiastic about this at all.
No, not at all.
In case you were wondering. I was going to go in order, if that's okay, from the people that signed in. Is that all right with everybody? And yes, we started with Joan. And Joan, would you mind?
I think Bobcat should be in the name. Yes, here.
Your mascot.
Yes, right, definitely. Put it down. Mascot.
Hi, I'm Joan Kemper, and I live in Ojai. Actually, I live in Oakview, but I sort of work or I go around in Ojai. And I've known Mark and I have had several little projects from swimming pools to whatever through the years. He is wonderful to work with, believe me. Anyway, I firmly support this project. Whether it will go forth on the Chaparral property or not, we don't know. But my plan has been since the year 2000 to build a performing arts theater in Ojai, because I think we need that in a performing arts theater, and with a professional stage and all the multi-talents and techniques that go with that. That would be a meeting place, that would be that, but also would have a conservatory of theater arts. We would teach lighting, sound, wardrobe, makeup. In other words, all the theater arts which are needed, which are great because there's not really a good theater school very close. The closest one that's teaching anything is in Moore Park at the college. So anyway, that has sort of been, we have it designed, but we really don't have a plot to put it on. So Mark has shown here a black box theater, but we could put a theater almost anywhere if we can find a place. Property is hard to find. We got to find a place for parking, and we can have all the things. We need the artist studio. We need homes for people that can't affordable housing. The city needs a lot, but we also need to put that in with an art library, art studios, and an art center. So it's an art park, performing as well as applied arts. And where that's going to go, this is not site-specific, but if the community really thinks this would be an addition to the community, we want to hear from you. Because if you're enthused, if the community's enthused, we will build it. We will build it. We'll get the financing, we'll get the business plan, and we will build it. Are there any questions? Yes, Joe.
Well, what about the bowling alley?
About the bowling alley? That property, that's pretty expensive. That's out there. I don't know. I think that there's Mark, I think, has
working on
someone.
Working on it?
But I could ask them.
Nice to
We're
connect
looking
the
for
two.
every piece of property
looking
that's
for
not
affordable
nailed
housing.
down, believe me.
Yeah.
You're right, that
It's a
would be
big
interesting, that's in the
lot.
city limits.
And it has lots of parking.
But the main thing is, we'll have other meetings. The main thing is, we gotta be sure that everybody's interested in this and really wants to do it. Because, if the community is interested, if we build it, you will come. If you're not interested, you won't come. So, any other questions? Thank you. Thank you very much.
The next person says it's Sylvie Lee, and they weren't sure if they wanted to speak or not. Sylvie, have you decided?
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having this. I really think this is an amazing opportunity. I think all of us know from being in Ojai that we have amazing artists here. I mean, just incredible talent. And if we could encourage that in the young folks, I think that would be tremendous. I myself have some background in art, and I would love to see that encouraged in others. I just don't see us doing that enough in schools, and it's sad to me that we have the arts being pulled away from the schools. And when I heard that, I just thought, how horrible, because for me, growing up, that was such a essential part of my being, my expression, my ability to be seen and heard, because I was pretty shy person, and I'm sure you could tell, from standing up here, I'm not very comfortable with people looking at me and seeing me. But to be able to express something internally, outwardly, in a creative way, I mean, we all have that ability, but all of us have to do it in different ways. And I think that the arts is such a tremendous way to do that. And we all look up to so many incredible artists. We are inspired by them. They bring life to many of us to kind of see what's possible. And storytelling. I mean, storytelling is told through art. What would life be without storytelling? So yes, I think something like this in Ojai to be a center point would be just tremendous. So I think full support. Thank you.
Next person is Anita Lendrix. Did I say that right? Lendrix? Okay, good.
Hello, everyone. I like the idea of an art school. I love the idea that we are an art community. We are a spiritual community. I think those are two things that we're distinctively known for. And I would like this, whatever it is, to really foster that. Because to me, art and spirit are one. I'm sorry, excuse me, okay. Art and spirit are one. I was recently led a dance at a gathering, a spiritual gathering. I could not believe it. I was a novice, and two people said that their notion, their spirituality, the notion of spirituality, a particular religion was transformed from doing the dance. And I just got, I didn't know that could happen. So I love the idea of having some art here. I would like to see this mainly be a community center. I feel like we already have a theater downtown. We have the art theater. We have several other venues, and if we could expand our web to include that, to include arts, but also be a nice collaboration between the school district and this project. Let's see, I had a couple other notes here. The center courtyard right now is an absolutely marvelous farmer's market. People go there religiously. It's like almost church for some people. And you go there and you get to see your friends, you get to buy fresh vegetables. So I really would like to keep that entire courtyard intact without anything incurring upon that, because it is just, I don't know if you've been to it, it is like one of my highlights of my week. Also, you know, the school district was talking about a pool. Oakview, for God's sake, has a community center. They raised money. They got, what was it called, where they get every homeowner pays a certain portion? Oakview voted for that so that they could have a community center. And they have a whole, you know, well, we can't do athletic fields and all of that, but we could have a swimming pool there. The school district goes, you know, what are we going to do for a swimming pool? This is lots of land. Also, I would like to see in the green area, why don't we have some wonderful, like, organic or experimental gardens? And also, Mark, for you, if we have new buildings, what about doing something like Nader Khalili, who does these wonderful earth buildings? That, you know, I mean, it may be funny to some people, but if you've ever seen them, they're gorgeous. They're these circular buildings with their earth and concrete, and they form a very thick wall, so they're very quiet. Cool. And they're kind of sculptural. I know Mark doesn't work entirely in that realm, but he does these wonderful, just marvelous architectural, there's a fantastic and almost Moorish element to it. I can't quite describe it, but I think it would tie most beautifully in with something like that. And I do love your architecture. So it would be nice if you do have buildings for you to be the architect. But I would also like to see,
That's not my intention.
I'm not speaking for him. I'm just coming up with my own ideas, and I think he is interested in ecology and, you know, green architecture and stuff like that. Then we also have, let's see here, we talked about the pool. The Chaparral program, again, I'm going to reiterate, they are already there. I feel so badly. There was a student there when I actually substituted or worked as a volunteer there. The kids are working for their GEDs. They did not even have a chemistry lab to work from. So they're answering questions about chemistry when they can't even do the experiments. It's sad. It's really sad. So I would like to see this basically be focused on the community. I think some arts would be good, but I think we should use other resources in the community if we can and expand it. And then include more public service to both our own elementary, high school students, and also to the community at large in terms of the affordable housing. I think that we have a gross need for affordable housing. Rentals have gone up. People who are working in the community just, it's just dismal trying to find a place to live. So I hate to say this because I like to support the arts community. I'm an artist myself, and I know how hard it is to find a place to live. I consider myself extremely lucky to live here. But I feel like the affordable housing, you could have some arts, but I think really we need to open it up to the community. There are lots of older people. We have an aging population. Ohio has a disproportionate number of older people. Now, I know you'd like a youthful, and I love young people too, and it's wonderful to have an influx of young people. But there are older people who need housing. There are younger people who are working who need housing, who live here now and aren't coming from elsewhere, who can't find it. It's really sad. I mean, you all probably know one of the most lovely people I know, and she is like just concerned anytime her land decides to sell it to get some more money, because that's what a lot of people are doing, right? She's out of a place and she's not sure she can stay in Ojai. Okay, so the other thing is either have a public trust or, like Oakview did, they voted on a tax that would raise money from the landholders, and it wasn't even that much. And they were able to buy that whole, are you all familiar with that complex, the former elementary school in Oakview? And they were able to convert that into a community center, so they had a children's daycare there. They had a commercial kitchen where people could come and do cottage, industries. They have a whole ceramics room there where people can come and do ceramics. They have a beautiful library. And so I just think that we ought to look at serving our community first. And that's not to say that we still can't have some art school, activities there. But thank you very much.
There was a question. There's this question mark next to Jeffrey Starkweather. You want to speak?
Yeah.
Come on up. Thank you.
Didn't know how this thing was gonna go.
Now you know.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeffrey Starkweather. I actually grew up right down here in Miners Oaks. And someone was mentioning about art and kids kind of losing it. I recall being in we were trying to develop art in North Carolina where I was living. And they pointed out that in the kindergarten, in the first grade, if you ask kids, how many people want to be artists? Everybody does. But by the time you get to the 8th grade, only one hand will go like that, because it gets drummed out of them. And I had supposedly art talent when I was a kid, and but I was also a jock. And other kids would make fun of me because I would be doing painting, and it kind of got drummed out of me. So I felt, I feel really passionate about this. My son, by the way, was a kid who struggled academically. He was ADD, barely got through high school, but he was a super soccer player. And he got into college. Well, once he finished his college, it turns out he took a course in poetry, ended up getting, even though his grades were horrible, he got accepted into Sarah Lawrence College poetry school by writing his application a poem about his life, which I was included in, not always in the best way. Anyway, he went on, and now he and a bunch of his poetry buddies run a nationwide company that does poetry, sells poetry books, and he gets paid to go and do poetry. He doesn't make a living at it, but he works for the City University of New York. Anyway, I think this is a great concept, and Mark and I have talked about it a little bit. Actually, I ran for the school board. I didn't do so well, but part of what I was running on, I used to ask people, okay, so if you think about the problem we're facing in our schools, we're losing students. The financial problem is we're losing students. And what is really the only sustainable way that you can finance a school system? It's not by getting $400,000 or $500,000 a year from this thing, because that over time that's going to be worth less. And no, it's that you get more students, because they bring in $15,000 per student. So, is it 40? No, I think, but state money is 15. So if you get 200 students, you've got $300,000 more money. So anyway, when I was doing my platform, I guess you would say, I asked people, well, what is it that makes Ojai, of course I kind of knew because I grew up here, but what is it that makes Ojai unique? Of course, number one, it's an artist community. Obviously, it's a spiritual community. And I would say it's also an environmental community, because people come here for the environment. And it seemed to me, if we were going to attract students, 1/4 of the kids in our valley do not go to our public schools. And we're also a school of choice, which means we could attract kids from Oakview, from Ventura, Santa Paula, and they don't have to get to permission of their local school systems to come here. So, but we got to have something to get them to come here, don't we? And so the two ideas at the time I had were the arts and environmental education. But taking on what Joan said, because I had heard about the effort to do a performing arts center, I thought, well, that would be a perfect thing. I don't know why we couldn't put it on the high school, actually. But anyway, that could be something that attracts students. So after hearing Mark's concept, And I think when you're talking about something like an art institute, something that's going to bring the community together, it's not so much the design of the physical space, because that can be altered. It's really what the concept is. You know, what are we trying to do? And so the practical part, I hate to say it, I eventually became a lawyer and a journalist. I have to deal with the practical side. The practical side is the school board took the position, I think they still do because I was at the last meeting, is that if we're going to depart from this being part of the school system, or you know, the way it's being used now, then we have to generate a whole bunch of money by someone commercializing it or some way transforming it into money making that they're going to pay us for leasing our property for the next 99 years. A better way to look at it, in my opinion, is to use this property for something like an art institute that actually is tied in with the schools. Like you said, not only would the kids come to this, and I was actually looking at arts high schools, what's in them. That not only would kids come to the art school, but the artists could go into the schools. And so that starting from the very elementary school all the way through high school, that arts would be integrated. And I agree with you that in science and math and social studies and history, you know, I think one of the problems we have in education is we spent 30 years teaching tests and filling little bubbles and taking creativity away from people and then punishing teachers and punishing schools because their kids don't pass a certain amount. We need to get back to education where the kids are driving their education, where they are relating it to the world. So what would be better if you're discussing social studies or something and you have a project, I don't know, where you're drawing what you're going to talk about, you know, or you're putting together a little village or something that shows it. So I think we need to get this creativity back in the schools, and we need to have kids actually want to be in school. They say, because unfortunately I had to read a whole bunch of education stuff when I ran for the school board, they say that when you get to typical high school, 20% of the kids are filling in every bubble they have to fill in to get into college. You know, they're taking this curriculum and extra curriculum here, even though they may not even care about it. They're just filling in that resume so they can get into college. Because their parents want them to be in that top 20% that are having a comfortable life. What are the 80% doing? They're bored. They're throwing spitballs. They're, you know, having to do tests. The bottom 80%, that's really a bad word to use, I don't like it, but anyway, the kids that you would consider that, they need this kind of education in some ways more than the kids on the top, the kids from come of good families, because it would make their education and going to school more meaningful. So the idea would be that if we had this art school, and I would add, someone mentioned this, because I have a friend who's in technology, and I have a friend who does design at NC State and their school. The intersection between technology and computers and art is like the really growing field. Most kids, in some ways, would rather be on a computer designing things, in some ways, unfortunately, than paint and pencil, you know. So there's all kinds of jobs actually could come out of that. Gaming is a good example. Kids love to do gaming, but gaming isn't just the gaming where you throw away $1 million every year. Gaming can also be where you use it for educational purpose. My friend, who is this graphic designer who does games, she's been doing games during the pandemic for all kinds of colleges to use for educational purposes. Another example is, you know, graphic design, but someone mentioned what I call the practical arts. Furniture design, industrial design. You know, there's all kinds of potentials here. Again, we can speculate and come up with great ideas. Eventually, you're going to have to do kind of what you call a marketing study to find out which ones would actually, you know, attract students and which one. So I think we could also become a satellite of the community college. right on that site where kids are taking courses that they get credit for, but they take them in Ojai, they would be art related. That would count for them getting into college, theoretically. And it would give us potentially more revenue for doing this. So, anyway, I've gone on and on, I'm sorry. But the key is, we don't want this to be something that's there to make money for the school by somebody paying the school. We want it to make money for the school by attracting students who will bring the money with them. We don't have to, you know, charge people. Now, yes, you're going to have to pay for this thing functioning. In terms of design, I just have, you know, because I think Mark is great, the idea of you keeping buildings, and I agree as a person in sustainability that embodied energy is like your biggest energy. You use more energy in building the building than you will ever use using it. So yes, there is something to that. On the other hand, we got to make it work. The only thing, I don't know how I would do it, but I just think that we could get rid of the parking spaces and maybe create some kind of separate parking area. So these become like courtyards or something that you roam through and you get more interaction. The only other thing I would say, and I don't have any design for this, but we ought to think of interaction of all the various arts. How do we encourage the visual artists and the dramatic artists to interact, the dancing artists, because that's, to me, where creativity comes, when you start mixing different kinds of art. So anyway, I'm very enthusiastic about this. I'll do whatever I can to support it, but we just need to, you know, the other thing is that too much, it's just one thing, too much of, when I've watched the school system, it seems like everything is top down. You know, the school board, the superintendent, the administration decide they're going to do this, good ideas. To me, a great school system, a great community is bottom up. And this is what we're doing here tonight, bottom up. So I think it's great. I want to applaud Mark, and I'll be there to help him. Thanks.
Julie Hahn. And then after Julie, there's nobody else that signed up, so you want to do it after Julie? Okay.
Thank you. I'm Julie Hahn, and I'm really here on behalf of Mark because he asked me to do some research, some thinking, and so ideas are wonderful. They're great, but there were some logistics when I listened to the school board meeting. They were, and I think Kevin was here, he's still up there, but one board member here, because it's kind of like the, you know, it's kind of like the partner here. And they pushed the idea down the road, kicked the can down the road and said, you know, it's up to the new 3 board members that are coming in. They'll be voted in. So I think that they need to be somehow courted and brought into this conversation in a way that doesn't get polarized. Small town, things can derail quickly. So how do you do that? I love the idea of a mission statement. And I think that that's a good way to start. And Vera, your ability to maybe do a grant on a study or to do that, because you're in the school system and you know, so that we really come at it, not with specifics, do we have this, not parking, not there. It's a concept. And it's an organic concept. And I think that if we can begin with a real study that says, you know, like a white paper, that we could present to the board to consider if they whatever they want to do. You've planted the seed, and we planted it in the right way. We haven't gone into money and specifics that came up in the board meeting. I mean, they were like, you know, we have to put $1.8 million into refurbishing the building now, you know, all that stuff. But it's like, it's presenting them with an idea. So I think that was important. And Mark shared another piece of correspondence that came in that said, what about including all the arts facilities? You know, because people begin to get vulnerable. They begin to get, the art center or the storytelling, whatever, or my theater, we have to make sure going forward that it's an inclusive, organic process. And so those are the things that I gathered from the board meeting and all, that we should step back, stick with the mission statement, help to identify the beauty of Ojai, the arts, the spirituality. And I believe that a lot of tourists come here for that, and then they can't find it, or they find it here. So it's helping them identify that and finding the heart and soul of the community. And so we might have to step back a little bit. Always a design is a great idea because people want to see something tangible, but it can get run away and caught down in the minutia. So those are the things that I thought about at your request. Okay?
Thank you.
Really quick. Sure. I just wanted to mention really quickly that I have had Zoom meetings with the Porch Gallery, the Carolyn Glaza Bailey Foundation, Basic Premise when it was open, the Ojai Studio Artists. They are also in concert with a big community-wide art push. So just wanted to say that.
Hi there, I'm David Killian, Parzial. I also work in the school district right now. I work for Valley Oak Charter School. It's kind of in view of this hill over here. It's over the old community church. They actually have a theater school right now called Oh Yes. They're kind of trying to be an alternative school for kids. And I'm seeing firsthand the issues with the school district. There's just a lot going on. And I'm a very, very small representative of a very small school. I'm not actually a representative, I'm my own person. I grew up here. I went to Matilaha, and I went to Villanova, and then I went and got my environmental studies degree in Oregon. I have my permaculture design certificate from Quail Springs over here. And I think that another important thing that this community is known for is farming. I grew up over here right next to the Grange, which the Grange is an old organization of farmers that isn't really active anymore. We have a little bit going on, but I think that also a way to tie in more people to this project could be to target kind of the environmental community, because I know the environmental community is really passionate, and that's also just a group of people who we care about what happens here. And in general, I'm finding, as I totally think we should target what people already like in terms of having technology and everything, but we're also kind of a hub for like regenerative agriculture. And so yeah, I'd like to just kind of tie that. We could be an educational center for permaculture, because usually this is kind of out in the hills. It's kind of hard to find. And it's also, I just feel like art and nature and the environmental side of things is also a thing that ties everyone together, like different political spectrum, like we're all connected to our food, and that could just be a thing, And I was also just going to kind of emphasize, I feel like, the importance of the skate park. I feel like as a kid that's kind of that was a really important place, but it's also a place where there is a lot of kind of vagrancy and kind of kids who are maybe like trying to rebel, like kind of classic skateboarding things, and that's great. But I think that if we could also have that, like, embrace those like different walks of life, and have like a healthy place there for kids in the skate scene, that theater there is really awesome. And I guess this could kind of tie some of the only events I've gone to since being back in town was a seed swap at the Chaparral auditorium there. And that was a really like kind of a hustling and bustling thing, which also incorporates the farmers market that's currently there. So it's like the space has been used for environmental things already. And I think like incorporating the art and nature is kind of something that, and just environmental minded projects. So that's my 2 cents. I think that's it. Yeah, and also I was literally writing environmental education on my phone when a bobcat went by.
Good line.
The facilitator went to school for environmental education, so good job. Are these anybody's kids?
No, can I respond to that?
Oh, yeah.
The environmental aspect?
We've got one more person waiting.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna
Okay.
say,
And he said farming.
Maybe like permaculture, regenerative.
when I was running and trying to put a platform, that what you're talking about is exactly the other area that I was pushing for. Because to me, we already have a campus. It's called the Ojai Valley. Actually, downtown Ojai has an 8-acre environmental park that the town has put together. And so my concept on that is we have the environment here. I mean, you can take hikes almost any place. You can study all kinds of stuff. We're near the ocean too. But I felt to make that really work, we needed to have more community school connection on environment. There's plenty of really all kinds of scientists I know in this valley because I've worked with them who speak on climate change and so forth. And we need to open the school up to the community to help with environmental education. So I think both of these things we could be known for in Ojai because we're already known for them as places to live and the kind of people that come here. So why not take advantage of both our physical asset and our people asset? And somehow I felt that the school has kind of isolated itself from the community. The school system has isolated itself now, you know, because I'll give one little example because I went to Miners Oak School here. They have a gigantic playground in the back, but you can't get into it. It's locked. Even though there's a gate that's like 10 feet high between that and the school, somehow they won't open it up. So I think that's a whole nother concept that the schools ought to embrace the community. Obviously, you got to be careful about you know, predators and all that kind of stuff. But actually, the more communities involved in the school, and we know this from walkways and stuff in cities, the more people that walk on a walkway, the safer it is. People that are predators, they're going to look for places where there's nobody watching. So the more the school was open to people, I think the safer and the more our kids would feel like they're part of the community that cares about them. So anyway, it's just an idea. I tried.
Thanks for coming.
They didn't want anybody questioning it.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Hunter, Mark's aforementioned nephew. I here kind of representing a little bit of a different demographic. Really? Yeah. I'm a senior at Nordhoff, and so I figured I'd come up here and kind of talk about like my experiences in all of it and what I think, just because I'm going to be the part of the demographic that's mainly targeted here. Where, yeah, I can definitely say just like from my experience at Nordhoff that, I mean, I'm not always been the best at school, but having like that really strong art program at Nordhoff has kind of been a lifesaver for me. Like having like art and ceramics there, it's been great. Like just having a wonderful outlet gets me through the day, honestly. But yeah, again, especially after COVID and everything, losing a lot of budget for the art program. We've like talked to the art teachers about it and everything, and I mean you could definitely notice. And I think just having this here for like all sorts of arts and whatnot. And again, sorry, this is very choppy. I was very, very impromptu, but yeah, having like that extra support for everyone to express themselves, especially like as kids coming back from COVID, I've kind of noticed more in ceramics than in art, especially because it's a little bit more accessible for most people. That like in the beginning of the year and then also last year, everyone was kind of, well, obviously very closed off and kind of like in ceramics to like, oh, just fill a criteria, check a box, like you said. And as the years kind of go on, like the first month or so, everyone's like, whoa, this is kind of sick. And have that exact reaction. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I'm very much 18, so my lingo is a little bit different than everyone else here. So, so yeah, and just I feel like having an area that would be a lot more accessible to everyone, and parents from the school would go there. Will partially just experience also what their kids are going through, but also have a way to express themselves. And he'd always, over COVID, me and him got kind of close. I was working for him a lot and doing odd jobs around his house, teenage stuff. But he would always talk about how just wonderful it was to have, to give adults and kids that outlet, and how much he saw that that youthful energy and excitement come out in anyone. So, yeah, I think that's all I got.
Well done.
Yeah, I try. Good to represent.
Representing your family, right?
Oh, his age.
Yeah. Representing the family.
Apologizing for being 18. Is there any last people that have been holding back?
I just have 2 comments.
Do you want to come up here?
No, I'm okay here.
No, it's for the benefit of the people that can't hear you.
Can't come in for a seat.
All right.
Thank you.
You got such a good smile. You need to get it on camera.
Okay, 2 comments. One, I just love everything you said, and it gave me an idea. It's like we can really take example of the concept that we're trying to identify here from right here down the hill, Oak Grove School. It covers the whole person. They have all the arts there. They have agriculture. Oh, okay. They have agriculture, they have theater, gardening, they have everything there so the whole person develops, along with their academics, obviously. And then they have travel. So it's kind of a, good example for what we could develop in downtown Ojai as the hub to, and because we've been shut down because of COVID, but the hub to blossom our inner self, our inner child, like the people were saying, we were all so creative and wild when we were young, experimenting and just being ourselves. So this would be an opportunity, especially for the children that don't have this creativity at their school, have after-school programs for them. And then for the adults, have evening programs and just blossom in that way. That was one thing. The other thing is, back to real estate. I'm a realtor, so I'm thinking, the bowling alley. And I just thought another thing, what about right next to this parcel over there? Right there. My client had an offer on this once, and it's a huge swath of land that's right on Ojai Avenue. There's a channel there between that and the skate park, and it goes way back and gets wide. It's where that big kind of antique water tower. Yeah. Yeah, and the creek and the water, flooding channel is there. But on the far side of it, I also had an offer on the house that's there, and that house goes to Aliso, so it's right there. So it's a big space right next to what we're talking about. And it's
developable land?
Oh, yes.
I thought the city was funny about that.
No, I'm not going to say what I just said. I mean, what I was thinking. Oops, I stopped. But it is available. And it needs to be presented as something that the city would agree to. Yeah. It's huge. Yeah, you could have that whole area as affordable housing. You know, I had a client that had an offer, but, you know, it just didn't work. But it's a beautiful piece of land.
So, you know, we have a land trust for nature, but a lot of places have land trusts for affordable housing.
Yeah.
So what you would get is a whole bunch of people giving donations like they do and buy the property. Then you don't have the rising rents of the property.
Yes.
Makes it much more feasible to build affordable housing because you don't have to worry about paying for the property. And you give people like a 99-year lease kind of thing.
Yes, and like Joan Kemper gives us such an example that, you know, money's there, you know, and Vera, like you said, money is there. We just have to present the concept. That's a beautiful piece of land that would just go right in with this.
Is that, how big a piece of land is that?
It's not an acre.
Oh, it's not even
Oh,
an
wait,
acre?
no.
It's exactly 1 acre.
It's exactly 1 acre.
I just met with Jeff Becker, who owns it today.
Oh,
yeah,
it's
too small. He's proposing affordable housing in the back,
Oh, is it?
commercial in the front.
Oh, we're getting it anyway.
Okay.
I was going to ask, what about like tiny homes being there? Because it's so long, you have tiny homes.
He just said that the owner is thinking about putting in affordable housing, so-called affordable.
Well, moderate income housing.
With town.
So many wonderful ideas tonight. Mark, would you like to wrap us up? And
Sure.
what's next?
Tie it all together.
Well, yeah. Well, even though our group is small, I think it's served exactly the purpose. You know, we're looking forward to having this kind of input, and I think with some great ideas and great enthusiasm. So glad everyone came and participated. And well, you know, I think what needs to happen next is for us to come up with a plan, and this you know, market study, you know, the white paper, you know, that we talked about, and show that we can, you know, make this thing work. And I think that's the next, in my mind, that's the next step to go forward. And so,
Is the mission statement set in stone, or is it still, you know, workable?
yeah, everything is workable. It's all still. So, yeah, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your time. Yeah,